Dear students, we are going to discuss characteristic of Robert Browning's poetry. Robert Browning is better known as a major Victorian poet and in particular as one who perfected the influential verse form called Dramatic Monologue. His achievement in poetry, for which he forsook the theatre altogether in 1846, was unquestionably much greater than what he accomplished as a writer of stage plays, yet it is difficult and unwise to distinguish the subject matter and techniques of Browning failed dramas from those of whose successful poems, although he was by nature and inclination a dramatic writer. It became apparent that his interest and talent in that line were more suited to the finer medium of poetry than to the practical. You can say the verse confirms his acknowledged with the interior drama. Browning verse masterpiece in this mode includes, for example, My Last Duchess and the Bishop Order His Tomb and The Ring and the Book, 1868 and 1869. The dramatic monologue by Browning typically features as incessant moment of crisis or self-realization in the mental life of some unusual, often morally or psychologically flawed character. Rather like a soliloquy, except in being addressed to a present but silent listener, this type of poem enabled Browning to let his speaker's personalities, motives, obsessions, and delusions be revealed, otherwise in speech and implied gestures. So, we'll discuss the characteristic. First of all, we'll discuss multiple perspectives on single events. The dramatic monologue was from Lord Browning to explore and probe the minds of specific characters in specific places, struggling with specific sets of circumstances. As earlier I have discussed in The Ring and the Book, Browning tells a suspended story of murderer using multiple voices, which give multiple perspective and multiple variants of same story. Dramatic monologue allow readers to enter into the minds of various characters and to see an event from the character's perspective. Understanding the thoughts, feelings, and motivations of character not only gives readers a sense of sympathy for the character but also helps reader understand the multiplicity of perspective that make up the truth. In effect, Browning's work reminds readers that the nature of truth or reality, depending on one's perspective or a view of the situation. So the multiple perspective illustrate the idea that no one sensibility or perspective sees the whole story and no two people see the same events in the same way. Browning further illustrated this idea by writing poems that work together as companion pieces, such as Fra Lippo and the Andrea del Sarto. Poems such as these show how people with different characters respond differently to similar situations as well as depict how a time, place, and scenario can cause people with similar personalities to develop or change quite dramatically. So, the number second is the purpose of the art. Browning wrote many poems about artists and poets, including such dramatic monologue as Picture Logists and the Fra Lippo. Frequently, Browning would begin by thinking about an artist, an artwork or type of art that he admired or disliked. Then he would speculate on the character or artistic philosophy that would lead a such success on failure. His dramatic monologues about artistic attempt to capture some of this philosophizing because his characters speculate on the purpose of art. For instance, the speaker of the Fra Lippo proposes that art heightens our powers of observation and help us notice things about our own lives. According to some of these characters and poems, painting idealizes the beauty found in the real world, such as the you can say uh, s- sculpture and the architecture can memorialize famous or important people are in the bishop order his tomb at Saint. But art also help its creators to make a living, and it thus has a purpose as a creative, an idea to explore in other works. So the third one is the relation between art and morality. Throughout his works, Browning tried to answer questions about an artist's responsibilities and to describe the relationship between art and morality. He questioned whether artists had an obligation to be moral and whether artists should pass judgment on their characters and creations. So, in My Last Duchess, the speaker gets away with his wife's murder since neither his audience in the poem nor his creator judges or criticize him. Instead, the responsibility of judging the characters' morality is left to reader, and who finds the Duke of, you can say, specifically person even as he take us on a tour of his art gallery. So overall we can say what when can talk from Browning's work is that the poet himself lived accordingly to one of his more prevalent themes, the quest, and the intellectually adventurous man who sought to document his ever changing attitudes and beliefs into art. Robert Browning saw the human struggle as a noble quest towards an impossible goal of perfection, and luckily thought to you can say the struggle as the best he could. Thank you.